Hello.
Hey.
I think we're back. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's Learning Space. I am your host, Nicole Gugliucci, postdoc with CosmoQuest. I have with me our guest, Kevin Govender, who's down in Cape Town. What direction is south? I don't know.
You mean up in Cape Town, depending how you look at it.
It's true, up in Cape Town. Cape Town, one of my favorite places to visit. And Georgia may be joining us in a little bit. She just got back from a weekend away, so she may be joining us a little late. I apparently... so I see you guys having conversation over in the comment thread for the CosmoQuest event. Apparently something's gone wonky with the Q&A. There is a new feature called Showcase, which I enabled, which says something about sharing links with your audience, so I went ahead and gave that a try, and apparently that broke the Q&A. So apologies for that. If you're not able to get into the Q&A, go ahead and use the comment thread on the CosmoQuest event for this. I will be checking that. So hi Nancy, hi Guido. I see you've got a couple of our regular viewers. And hello to everyone who couldn't make it because it's apparently rush hour for a lot of you guys in the EU. So this isn't our normal time apparently. But I want to thank Kevin for joining us because it is late in the evening for you over in Cape Town. You've got babies to put to bed soon.
Yeah, sorry, the rush hour was my fault. I had to put it a little bit earlier.
It's fine.
Sorry if anyone got caught in rush hour.
Anything for the Astro babies, man. Astro babies are the best. So I am going to go ahead and try and fire up, see what this Showcase app does. You guys who are watching can let me know what it does. I have no idea. I just shared a link for the IAU, Office of Astronomy Development, which is what we're going to be talking about today. So there we go. Click Show Item. Yeah, so if you guys can let me know in the comments how that's working for you, and if you can get the Q&A working, that would be awesome. We're going to go ahead and please use the comment thread to ask questions and leave comments as you guys normally would, since I borked the Q&A app. Yay! So Kevin, can you tell us a little bit about what is overall the Office of Astronomy Development for the IAU?
Okay, so first the name. It's called the Office of Astronomy for Development. Mm-hmm. So the IAU came up with this strategic plan in 2009, and well, first, who's the IAU? It's the International Astronomical Union. It's basically the world's body of professional astronomers, and at the moment I think there's over 11,000 astronomers that are part of this professional society. In 2009, their General Assembly, which is the biggest gathering of astronomers around the world, adopted this plan to say, basically, how can we use astronomy to make the world a better place? And so, so the strategic plan was based on the idea that astronomy has links into all the sort of key factors making that we use to measure the levels of development. It deals with science and technology. It deals with research, but it also deals with culture and society. And having this field that straddles all these different areas gives it quite a unique place in the global landscape. Now, how can we use that coolness of astronomy to straddle all these different areas, technology, science, culture, and stimulate development around the world? And so the strategic plan was born, and our office was set up to make that strategic plan happen. We basically are the implementing body for that plan.
So is this kind of an answer to the question, I don't know if you get, but I get sometimes, what is astronomy good for? Like, why are we studying astronomy? How does astronomy contribute to development?
Yeah, so how should I answer that? It's a convenient answer because that's kind of what we're doing, mm-hmm. But it wasn't the purpose of why they set it up. I think that must be made clear. It's that the office was set up because the guys, in the astronomy field, thought, wait a minute, our science is so cool. We get inspired by it. There's so many people that get inspired by it. If you sit on a plane with someone, you tell them you're an astronomer, and you've got a conversation for the rest of the plane ride.
Right.
It's this field that inspires people, and it was the recognition that there's a strength of this field, and that strength can be used to stimulate education and development around the world, and that's why it was set up. But yeah, often people say, okay, well, why invest in astronomy? Well, look at what these guys are doing. Well, yeah, we're kind of trying to use astronomy to make the world a better place. And how are we doing that? I mean, it's at the end of the day, you got to ask yourself, well, what do we mean by development? What do we mean by making the world a better place? If the stance that I've always taken myself, and I think is in line with this plan, is that the only hope we have of making a positive impact in the world is to empower people to solve the challenges themselves that they face. And how do you empower people? You basically empower them by educating them, by empowering their mind, by helping people to think, helping people to become problem solvers. Astronomy is one of those fields that ability to capture just about anyone, with the scale, the beauty of the universe. It helps to create a spark that pulls people into asking questions, into learning, and so our job here is to fuel that spark. We're trying to use astronomy as a gateway into education fields, and so our three focus areas are university level science and research, school level maths and science education, and public understanding of science. So we, it's basically, you can think of it as using astronomy to stimulate education, sort of cradle to grave.
Cool. So what kind of projects do you coordinate or run? I know you've got the grant proposal program, which is happening right now. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So one of the biggest activities of the OAD at the moment is to have an annual call for proposals. It's basically this throwing it out to the world and saying, we don't have all the ideas, so what ideas do you have to use astronomy to make a difference in your area, in your neighborhood, or in your country, in your region? And so this annual call for proposals, which is open at the moment, looks for projects, or especially innovative ideas in those three areas: universities, schools, and public. And then we fund these projects. Usually, it's seed funding to test out projects all around the world. And if we find something that's really cool, we take those projects and incubate them at the OAD and see if we can expand them. And so, excuse me, sorry, I got a bit of a cold as well. Yeah. So at the moment, in 2013 was the first implementation of projects. We had 18 projects around the world. In 2014, we had 23 projects, and now the call is open for projects for 2015, and the closing date is the end of August. I can give you some examples of projects as well.
Yeah. I'd like to know kind of what you've gotten.
Yeah, it's been so cool. You've shared the website, right? On the homepage of the website, there's a map where people can click on the different pins. But on the university level, it's mainly schools for young astronomers. There's one cool project that looks at creating sort of a telescope control room in universities, so that students can basically access robotic telescopes from their home universities. So they just need an internet connection and a computer lab, and then basically use a telescope, access data, and it it sort of opens up the field to people all around the world to access data and to do science. On the school level, there's a lot of interesting projects ranging from teacher training activities to the production of different resources. One really cool one was astronomy for the visually impaired. Where there was a kit produced, and we sort of adopted this a bit and are trying to expand it. How do you teach astronomy to someone who can't see? And there's resources that we developed in Spain, and we're trying to expand on this project. Astronomy for the public, there's all sorts of really cool activities. There's astronomy meets art that was held in Colombia. There's a very cool one in China where it looks at taking ancient Chinese poetry and mapping it against modern astrophotography. There's a program in the US actually that takes astronomy into the Ronald McDonald homes to use telescopes, use astronomy to inspire the young children that are undergoing treatment and their families in the area. So it's sort of like a whole diverse range of activities. And you know, the challenge for us and it's a cool challenge is now to take all this experience and build a sort of best practice database that can feed other projects. So the projects are constantly building on the shoulders of others, so that, you know, in 5 years' time we don't have a repeat of similar project ideas, but rather building on and on. And so hopefully this will expand. So at the moment we're overseeing something like 41 projects around the world. You know, the projects that don't get funded, but which are still good enough that we feel are good enough to be funded, they go onto a sort of a wish list, and we keep fundraising for them as well.
Yes, I was going to ask about the wish list next, because you got a lot more proposals than you were able to fund. Was last year the first grant call?
No. So the first grant call went out in 2012,
okay.
And so the projects were implemented in 2013, and then 2013 was the second one.
Gotcha.
So the first one we had 191 proposals, of which we were able to fund 18. In the second call, it increased to 230 proposals. So we had like a 20% increase from year one to year two, and this is in spite of like a 10% success rate. You know, so it's really an area where people are keen to put good ideas on the table. And so of that 230 proposals, we were only able to fund 23, and so that wish list is on the OED website at the moment. And so the idea is to you know, encourage the projects to either crowdfund or approach different institutions, and you know, ultimately, as we build up our base, our experience of you know, in the fundraising scene, we'll be able to get a more structured sort of format where, you know, wishlist projects automatically get into a crowdfunding platform or something like that. We're always looking for hackers to help us conceptualize and implement things like this as well.
You just brought up hackers, so we met at Bad Astronomy, I think, which is where the concept of hacking is such a big deal and really important to us. Can you maybe just define that for people who aren't familiar with that?
Yeah, well, hacking is basically it's tinkering. It's being able to take a problem and then find a solution to it. So you know, you come up with a cool idea, and then find tools online. Sometimes coding is required, but basically to come up with a solution. To give you an example, a cool little hack that we did once was to take all the non-profit organizations in South Africa, and there was a database of about 80,000 nonprofit organizations, but in big spreadsheets. And we just used Google Fusion tables and pulled it all into a nice graphical sort of representation, and it's been super popular. So that was one that my wife Carolina and I did. We had a hack. We took part in a hackathon over a weekend, and this is what the hacking community is cool for. Is that you get together over a weekend, hack together something cool, and then you got almost a usable product at the end of it. And so we did this over a weekend, but it's so useful for journalists and for NGOs, for volunteers, and so that's basically an example of a hack.
Yeah, we've done many different projects at the Hack Day at Bad Astro. So some of you guys might be following. There's a astronomy tweeps account, which a different astronomer every week gets to host the account. It's kind of off the Real Scientist model, so that came out of a Hack Day project. Some of the videos that we've put out have come out of Hack Day projects. Not all coding, but a lot of it is coding and solving problems in a really kind of crowdsourced group brain Borg kind of way. Borg in a good sense.
Yeah. And it's awesome to have so many people. I mean, what's really cool about dot astronomy is that you never work on just one hack. There's always people working on different things, and so sometimes you need someone to strategize, to conceptualize, someone to hack, someone to code, someone to do some searches for cool stuff that can be applicable. And that vibe is what makes a hackathon really productive at the end of the day.
Right. Sorry, I got distracted looking at the dot astronomy stuff for this year. Which it's finals week here, so I wasn't able to sign up, unfortunately. Even though it's in Chicago, which is like a few hours away from me.
Yeah, we both really regret not being able to come. Carolina's like dying to come to it, but yeah. Now with a 2-year-old and a newborn, it's
well, when Dot Astronomy South Africa happens,
absolutely.
Totally. So you've already had a couple of these projects going that have been funded through the Astronomy for Development Office. What kind of outcomes are you seeing from those programs?
So it varies so much, and so after the first year, we took the experience that we gained from the first year of running these projects, and we put together a monitoring and evaluation framework. And we call it a framework because what you're asking is it varies from project to project so much. You can have a teacher training project that reaches 10 teachers in a really intensive way, and then you could have like a big media star party that reaches a whole few hundred people. But we built this framework to try and say, okay, what is it? What are the outcomes that you're expecting from your project, and and how do you measure it? How do you keep track of these things? What we're trying to do now, so that was the first year. So the projects that are being implemented this year, part of their grant agreements is to build in this monitoring and evaluation framework. So at the end of this year, when we get our reports, we can look at, okay, how did you model how did you keep track of the outcomes of your project? But there's one step further, is what is the impact that you're having? And that's a really tough question. So we're tackling that this year. We've partnered with the Institute for Monitoring and Evaluation here at the University of Cape Town, and we're looking at this as you have this idea of astronomy for development. Astronomy development, it doesn't seem to gel. They don't seem to be one leading to the other, but we're trying to develop a framework for impact evaluation that actually, hopefully, will be able to say in 2020, when we look back 5 years, we'll be able to say we set out to achieve this, and this is the impact that our programs have made. And this is a non-trivial thing, because it's like saying, well, if I run a teacher workshop and I inspire 10, 15 teachers, how do I measure the impact that will have? And then the question comes out, well, did they watch Carl Sagan, or did they see something else inspiring that contributed more to their inspiration than my workshop? Mm-hmm. So it's almost like doing one of these pharmaceutical trials where you need to sort of build an environment where you have a control, and it's quite a complex topic. But this is part of what we want to get to is that we want to always keep our eye on the ball of, we want to make the world a better place. We want to have impact, and we want to be able to genuinely measure that. We don't, it's really easy to inspire people with astronomy, to inspire large numbers of people with astronomy. Mm-hmm. But so what? What does that mean? How does that impact on the larger scale challenges that we face in this world? I mean, look at the news headlines in the past couple of weeks. What are we doing to impact on the craziness that goes on in the world today? And that's where we're heading. That's what we want to see. If we can inspire people to sort of, every time they see the moon, they think, well, the perspective of space, takes away the minor differences that we have amongst human beings, amongst life on planet Earth, and if it broadens people's minds, makes people more tolerant, then we're achieving something. But that's sort of sounds nice. How do you actually measure that? And that's sort of the direction that we're trying to get at.
Well, both of us are trained in physical sciences. I mean, even though astronomy isn't necessarily something you could poke and prod in a lab, we're used to measurements and numbers and error bars, and human subject research is a whole other ball of wax, which I've also started getting into, and it's like, oh God, it's messy.
Tell you what, and it's hard. That's sort of what I find interesting as well, is that it's almost like the natural sciences are easy because it's very mathematical. You've got a clear cause and effect. And then you get to people, and there's this mush of stuff. You got to take so many things into consideration. I mean, people are just, you can't say, assume this person is a ball. And
right. A spherical person.
A spherical person.
A frictionless feet.
Yeah. Exactly. But that's the challenge, because I really believe that we can make a difference. That we can do something. I mean, look, astronomy is not going to change the world on its own. It's just one tool, but it's a tool that we know, and it's a tool that we can use in some way. So let's contribute into the mix, and contribute into the mix in a way where we're not trying to get the warm and fuzzy feeling of making people smile. We're trying to get something deeper. We're trying to have a deeper impact on society, and how we go about that. We're going to have to embrace every bit of science, every field of science, whether it's the social sciences and the natural sciences and technologies, and try to come up with something that would make a meaningful impact.
Yeah, I had a sociology professor in college. And I was a senior physics major when I took her class, and she's like, you guys have it easy because you can, you have things you can measure and variables. And now I get it. All these years later. I got to go back and tell her, I get what you were talking about. People are fascinating, and learning how people learn is fascinating, but it's hard.
It is. It's very, very hard.
So do you have collaborations of all types of professionals that are working on these task forces? People with
absolutely. So each of the target areas, universities, schools, and public, we've got these task forces. So they're groups of people that are nominated by the IAU based on their expertise and their experience in that particular area. So we've got people who have been running schools in various parts of the world who have come on board on our university's task force. We've got people like Rosa Duran, who runs the Galileo Teacher Training Program on our Task Force for Children in Schools, and that's headed up by Pedro Russo, who now runs the Universe Awareness Program, used to run the International Year of Astronomy. Ed Gomez, Las Cumbres Observatory Global Telescope Network. Task Force 3, we've got Ian Robson, who's sort of huge in the UK, former head of STFC, and sort of one of the initiators of the communicating astronomy with the public community, and of course Carolina Odman, who used to run the Universe Awareness Program and has since moved to South Africa. No one knows why, but
no one knows why. She's sitting in the back next to
you. You can probably say hello to her if she's not too busy with.
If she wants, yeah.
But I think the little men need.
At least one of your children has a Twitter account, so it's not their first time on the internet.
Exactly. We're not thinking, the new one is gonna grow up and think, where's my Twitter account? How come there's no tweets from me when I was a kid?
Aw, jealous.
We should have started at Astro Baby 2014.
Astro Baby 2014. Sure, totally reasonable. Totally reasonable. Oh my gosh. So you've got different kind of different regional focuses, regional coordination. Can you tell us about maybe the differences in these regions and their different needs and goals?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the guiding principles that we built the OAD on has been one of humility. It's to really take the approach that there's no way that one central office is going to be able to know all the needs of the world. There's no way we're going to be able to say this works best in this culture or this region. And so the idea with regional nodes and language centers. So there's two things. There's regional nodes, which looks at a geographic region, and there's language centers, which looks at a language or a cultural region. So at the moment we've got 3 regional nodes: one in China for East Asia, one in Thailand for the Southeast Asian region, and one in Ethiopia for East Africa. And in China we also have a language center which looks at the Chinese language globally. So if you look globally, there's like for example, we've been exploring how to get the French-speaking community around the world to have a regional node or a sort of a language center. Sorry, and so the idea with this is that each of these nodes is an office with at least one full-time staff member. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's shared staff members, but basically they advise and coordinate activities within that particular region. So, for example, if there's a really cool project proposal for East Africa, then I'll go to the guys in Ethiopia who host the East African Regional Node, and I'll say, guys, isn't there some local funding that we can get to make this project happen? Or I'm not sure whether this project is feasible. Tell me whether it's feasible in your region, and they will have the local knowledge and be able to advise. So everything. I mean, we're an office of 3 people. The OAD is very small, and but we've got these about 30 people on the task forces who advise us on each of the areas of universities, schools, and public. Then we've got regional nodes that advise us on the regions. Then we've got oversight committees. At the moment, just a few days ago, we just launched an open review as well, where we open up to members of the public or anyone that's heard of the OED to also, have a say and try to help conceptualize what will be the best way to use astronomy to stimulate development. So it's really based on that principle of let's move this idea forward in a way where we accept and embrace ideas from different parts of the world and from people at all levels. This is not something where astronomers are going to tell us this is the way it's done. We need to embrace the whole world.
So you mentioned this open review, which anyone could participate in. Are there other ways that people can help out, lend their expertise, help out either in their own community or the global effort? Anyone who's interested.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a number of ways. On the OED website, there's the opportunities. I don't know where I should post this. I didn't ask you beforehand where I can just copy links and stuff. But
I can try and do that, although I think I broke the Q&A app doing that, but I can do that. Just let me know what you want to share.
Anyway, it's the...
one thing for anyone who's just listening to the audio version, the website that we're sharing is www.dev.org. So you can go there. It'll be in the show links.
Yeah.
Oh, you sent me a link. Tiny.
So I think that's longer than it needs to be, but basically there's one really exciting program that we just launched called the OED Visiting Fellowships Program, which is short visits to work with the OED in Cape Town. On the OED website, there's something. This is probably a better list to post. This is the OED ideas list. So this is a list of ideas that we pick up from people that interact with us from all around the world, and it's ideas that we would like to make happen, but we don't have the sort of hands to make it happen. And so there's a whole variety of skills that we need. We've got a bunch of volunteers. There's hundreds of volunteers that have registered their skills on the OED website. People are welcome to do that. You can also request a volunteer. So if you have a program that you need particular skills, then you can either drop us an email or just fill out your needs on the volunteers page. If you want to contribute your skills, you can register your needs, and that ideas list is something where if you're a computer programmer, there's some really cool ideas that we would like implemented. Like, for example, we need someone to revamp our entire website. It's something. We just, there's three of us. We got to manage all these projects. We got to handle all these things. There's just some things that we don't get around to. But there's also cool ideas like, how would we, if a small office has to coordinate all this, it's gonna become unwieldy. How do you crowdsource everything? This was an idea that it was during a conversation with Michelle Wilmers at OpenUCT, sort of the open data movement here in Cape Town, and it was the idea of crowdsourcing everything. What if the idea generation was crowdsourced? So people generated ideas but didn't bother about who implemented them. So give freely your ideas about how to use astronomy for development. Then what if you crowdsourced the implementation so that people, anyone can just pick up an idea and become the project leader for that. Then crowdsource the evaluation. So, people can evaluate and say this is the proposal we should fund. Then crowdsource the funding. Then crowdsource, the implementation, and then crowdsource the evaluation. I mean, it's a concept, but how do you make the entire process self-sustaining to a certain extent, where you can almost have a machine that's running with absolutely minimal intervention into it. So it's sort of ideas like that. How can we take what we're doing to a whole new level? So if people do want to contribute time, they can either register as a volunteer. They can get in touch on one of the ideas on the ideas list, and if they want to score a trip to Cape Town, choose a nice big project and start working on it. And we have these visiting fellowships. It's sort of an unpaid. We don't pay a person a salary, but we cover all their costs to come to Cape Town, enjoy the sunshine and the beaches, but at the same time, pull out something cool for the OED.
Cool. So there's, okay. Oh, did we just lose your audio?
Hello?
Okay, I can hear you. Sorry about that. Okay. So there's ideas out there. So for those of you watching or listening, there are lots of ways to volunteer. There are lots of ideas out there. I love this crowdsourced machine thing. That's like that in itself is a sociological experiment.
Yeah, I think it'll be very cool too. Yeah. Because what's cool about that is that it makes people stick to the bigger picture. Because usually, if I have a cool idea, I have this attachment to that idea. Like, I want to see my baby through to completion. But it's this thing that, if I was, to give you an example, if I was stuck out on the street tomorrow, yeah. I would use all the resources that I have, all my experience, all my science training and everything to figure out a way to keep warm, to make food, to survive. Just because I'm not out on the street, why can't I contribute those ideas out there and have someone else use it who needs it, And it's that sort of principle. It's that, if I have a cool idea, throw it out into the world and let someone take it, because the implementation of that idea is more important than the praise or the credit that I might get by saying, "Hey, I thought of that idea," And it's sort of a shift in thinking where we move away from sort of this natural human ego and into a phase where we look at the bigger picture. We want to make the world a better place. Let me take my idea to make the world a better place, throw it out into this pool somewhere, and let someone grab it and run with it. And if it happens, the world takes credit for it.
Well, this is back to that. Someone was just asking about hack days and hackathons in the comments. This is like a full-scale version of taking that mentality to the whole project in a way. So instead of doing a small, confined hackathon, you are taking that mentality bigger. So Hack Day and Hackathon, just to clarify, isn't anything. It's a concept that's used by lots of different. It's used in politics now. Like people are hacking, their local politics. It's used in computer science, obviously. We use it in astronomy. But if you look up hackathon or Hack Day, you can find something near you. The one I mentioned was the one coming up in Chicago in December. I think the update for that one is closed, but that's an astronomy-specific one. So check out your local. I find a lot of stuff like that on meetups. Check out your local community, your local coding community. There's lots of cool stuff like that. And like you said, this is the crowdsourcing hacking on the big scale that you're talking about. So yeah. But there's lots of other ways people can help on the smaller scale right now. Like you said, the helping with the website or helping with specific projects. You have translations. I see you have crowdsourced proofreading.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because lots of people who don't have English as their first language, if there's a scientist, they send a paper for review, and if their English is not good, they are sometimes biased by the reviewer, who thinks, oh well, this person is not that smart, and so sometimes you just need someone who can do an English proofread, and not necessarily the science. But anyway, these are ideas. It's something that people have to bash around and come up with the pros and cons and stuff.
Cool, very cool. And then you also mentioned that you have a visiting fellowship program starting up, internship
Yeah.
fellowship. Can you tell us a little bit more about those?
Yeah, so we the visiting fellowship program is basically, free trip to Cape Town for your skills. If there's exceptional volunteers who contribute cool stuff to that ideas list, to hacking together some nice stuff that we can use, then we basically will offer to fly them to Cape Town, cover their accommodation and meals and stuff. No salary, but basically they visit the OED, chill out in the cool city of Cape Town. Apparently, it's been voted the #1 tourist destination by both I think it's the New York Times and the Guardian.
Wow.
It's like we live in the #1 tourist capital of 2014. But the idea is that people get that experience in exchange for their skills. I'd rather have an enthusiastic person with web skills come to the OED and bring their energy and bring their excitement, rather than hiring a web development company to put together the website. It's part of sort of expanding that community and giving people a chance to interact much more, one-on-one with the OED as well. So these visiting fellowships are completely open, and basically it's just, if you're keen to start contributing something, get in touch, and then we'll have sort of a small selection process with our steering committee in terms of people's contributions and stuff, and you almost like win a trip to Cape Town kind of thing.
Guys, Cape Town is awesome. I was only there for like a few days, bracketing my Peru trip, but it's really cool.
Yeah.
They showed me the observatory and a whole bunch of stuff. Like my one day in Cape Town, I was running on the waterfront, so just ran around, did all the things. It's a really cool place, and you get to help save the world using astronomy. So.
Exactly. I mean, that's the biggest reward, I think. So that's the idea of sort of opening it up. With the internships, the idea is that young people wanting to have some experience, wanting to contribute to a bigger cause, get some training outside of their conventional university training. I mean, think about it. You work with OED, you're immediately talking to people from different cultures, different parts of the world, working with time zones that end you up like rushing for bedtime for your kids. But it's this vibrant, dynamic environment where you're tackling something in a very interesting way. It's science for development, but not the usual kind of like let's develop technologies kind of development. This is like trying to influence people's minds, and the most powerful resource that we have in the world today is it's people's minds. If you I say to people sometimes that the most powerful the most powerful characters in human history, whether it's a good person or a really nasty person, they had one thing in common, and that was influencing people's minds. Yeah. The more you can influence how people think, the more you can impact on the world. And what this whole idea is about trying to influence people to think for themselves. It's to empower people with the ability to make their own choices, make their decisions, and solve the problems that they might face that your teacher will never know. When you go to school, your teacher will teach you maths and science and these things. Your teacher will never see the problems that you will solve, but your teacher has empowered you to tackle those. And it's the same sort of idea, except that it's not sort of the teacher image that I want to convey. It's about people being inspired and sort of having a desire to learn and finding that knowledge themselves.
Yeah, I got to see a little bit of that again when I was in Cape Town, because South Africa and the African continent as a whole is using, I'm biased towards radio astronomy, of course, but the square kilometer array effort they are taking advantage of that and building up the brain trust of the country and of the region, and really working hard to bring more young people into science and into astronomy to work with the telescope that's being built right there locally. So I think I gave a talk about our stuff out in the desert when I came back to Cape Town to a group of students who were working super hard to learn the astronomy. And so yeah, they're building the brain trust. They're using the fact that they're hosting one of the biggest telescopes in the world to build up that local brain trust, and I think that's a fabulous outcome.
Absolutely. To people that haven't heard about it, the square kilometer array, it's so big here in South Africa. Our president mentions it in his speeches in the State of the Nation address. We have the African Union. The African Union has made a declaration in support of the square kilometer array, and it's really it's really taken the image of science and technology to a new level. We're saying that by exploring the universe, we're going to have so much. We want to take the continent forward, and Africa will be a world player in expanding human knowledge.
You guys they made a comic book. I was so excited.
Yeah,
I gave away a few of these in our last giveaway. I had a bunch of English and Afrikaans versions, but I only have the English left. I don't know what I must have given the others away. It's like, oh my God, there's a comic book. Yeah, the president. Yeah. Same thing in Chile. Like the president came to the opening of the ALMA telescope. They had a whole subway exhibit about radio astronomy, and I'm like, guys, why aren't we doing this in the U.S.?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a whole. It's such a cool vibe at the moment, so besides the SKA, there's lots of different things happening. There's the African VLBI network, very long baseline interferometry, which is about converting radio telescopes into, converting old communications antenna into radio telescopes, and by doing this all over Africa, all over the African continent, you can combine the signals and basically have effectively a continent-sized telescope. Yeah. But there's various other countries where amazing things are happening. In Ethiopia, they just inaugurated 2 1-meter class optical telescopes, and they're going to be using these telescopes to build human capital in the East African region, whole East African region. They're now doing site testing for a site about 10 hours away from Addis Ababa, which seems to be which could potentially be one of the best sites in the world for optical telescopes. In Burkina Faso, they've just built a 1-meter class telescope. Nigeria has been working on a 25-meter radio telescope. There's such a vibe now, and like science and technology is really seen as something that will be the difference between a country that can solve its own challenges compared to a country that relies on international aid and that sort of thing.
Cool, very cool. Talking to you is always so inspiring, Kevin. The world now.
Yay! Come join me in South Africa again.
What's that?
Come join us in South Africa for a while.
Yeah, man. If I'm between jobs,
Yeah, anyone between jobs want to come and have a holiday in South Africa? We have a big open plan office with a coffee machine and near the beaches as well.
I gotta convince my partner he wants to move there though.
There's lots of opportunities in South Africa.
That works. That works. We've got some really happy comments about crowdsourcing in general, and Guido says if this ever takes off big time, it could mean the end of the patent age. So we're thinking really big
Oh,
here.
that's interesting. Yeah, that would be awesome, actually. Imagine a completely free society.
Right, right. One
Cool
where
things.
you still don't want to be taken advantage of. If everyone was cooperating, then that's a holy thing.
Yeah, exactly. Because then what happens if it gets into the wrong hands? And the thing is a society ready for that as a whole? Do we love each other enough? That's the question.
Yes. Well, I know our Learning Space commenters totally love each other and the world because they're awesome and they're the best. So we have the best viewers on our show. I'm bragging a little bit.
Awesome.
So thank you so much. I also wanted to say we had a comment from Rakesh Rao a little earlier saying, happy to see this hangout, learn more about the OAD. I'm happy to be part of an OAD-funded project.
Yeah, he's doing a cool documentary in India about telescopes. Cool.
Also about radio telescopes or optical telescopes?
No, well, all telescopes, observatories in India.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, watch out for that. His project should be. I can just send you the link now. But yeah, there's lots of really cool projects going on around the world.
Very cool. Thank you, Rakesh. Oh yeah, there you put the link in there. So that's over in your public outreach section. So.
And something as well to say to people. People don't always have to give time or skills. They can also just give advice. If you read through a project and you find here's something, I've got an idea. We want to encourage conversation as well. So even a conversation might make a difference to some projects. Advice on where to go, how to make things happen.
Sounds good. Awesome. All right. Well, I think we are about ready to wrap up. Just looking at the last few questions. Nancy Graziano added that Tesla is going a long way towards ending the patent era after they released all. I did not know this. Apparently, the Tesla car released all their designs to the public domain.
I heard about that. Yes. But maybe we're heading there slowly.
That's impressive. I had not heard that. That's really cool. And yes, Rakesh says all the telescopes. Yippee! I want to see what the GMRT is like. Cause I've never been there. Because
cool.
Radio dork. All right.
You gotta watch Rakesh's documentary.
Yay! All right. So thank you, Kevin, so much for joining me. Thank you, even though it was late, thank you for juggling children's bedtime around.
No problem. And thanks for the patience to everyone that had to get stuck in traffic and stuff. Sorry
it's
about
all
that.
Good. Well, this show's being recorded. It'll be available on YouTube. And on the 365 Days of Astronomy podcast next week. So Richard Drum will have that audio up for us. So lots more people can listen and watch. So awesome. The website we've been talking about is www.astro4dev.org. So for anybody who's listening, and we'll put that link in the show notes as well, so you guys can check out all the cool stuff. And yeah, thanks again so much. And say goodnight to Carolina and the babies, the Astro babies.
Yeah, I think she. I'm sure she says goodnight too.
Okay.
Could take a chance and see her, but
okay. Thanks so much for joining us, and thank you everybody. There's no show next week. I'll be at the Astronomical Society of the Pacific Conference, and I think Georgia is going to be otherwise occupied as well. So there's no show next week. We'll be back in 2 weeks. So thanks everyone for watching.
Thanks, CosmoQuest.
Thanks. For this, I will be checking that. So hi Nancy, hi Guido. I see you've got a couple of our regular viewers, and hello to everyone who couldn't make it because it's apparently rush hour for a lot of you guys in the EU. So this isn't our normal time apparently. But I want to thank Kevin for joining us because it is late in the evening for you over in Cape Town. You've got babies to put to bed soon.
Yeah, sorry, the rush hour was my fault. I had
No, it's
to pull
fine.
it a little bit earlier.
It's fine.
Sorry for
No.
anyone who got caught in rush hour.
Anything for the Astro Babies, man. Astro Babies are the best. So I am going to go ahead and try and fire up, see what this Showcase app does. You guys who are watching can let me know what it does. I have no idea. I just shared a link for the IAU, Office of Astronomy Development, which is what we're going to be talking about today. So there we go. Click Show Item. Yeah, so if you guys can let me know in the comments how that's working for you, and if you can get the Q&A working, that would be awesome. We're going to go ahead, and so please use the comment thread to ask questions and leave comments as you guys normally would, since I... Hello!
Hey.
I think we're back. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's Learning Space. I am your host, Nicole Gugliucci, postdoc with CosmoQuest. I have with me our guest, Kevin Govender, who's down in Cape Town. I don't know, what direction is south? I don't know.
You mean up in Cape Town, depending how you look at it.
It's true, up in Cape Town. Cape Town, one of my favorite places to visit. And Georgia may be joining us in a little bit. She just got back from a weekend away, so she may be joining us a little late. I apparently... so I see you guys having conversation over in the comment thread for the CosmoQuest event. Apparently something's gone wonky with the Q&A. There is a new feature called Showcase, which I enabled, which says something about sharing links with your audience, so I went ahead and gave that a try, and apparently that broke the Q&A. So apologies for that. If you're not able to get into the Q&A, go ahead and use the comment thread on the CosmoQuest event.